Shalom. I'd like to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory that is due unto you, Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakaha Kwadash. Lord, have mercy on me. Protect my coming in and my going out. Protect the elect out there. Lord's will, I am of the elect. And Lord's will, I can stand to see you take out Esau Edom's wicked kingdom and set up your kingdom in righteousness where we could rule under you forever and ever, Lord. Now, in this lesson, I want to go into how you shouldn't bother teaching your woman or the woman you're dealing with the truth. You know, of course, I'm not saying you shouldn't go into Bible scripture with her. I'm more so saying, the truth, about Jacob and Esau, your nationality, your true nationality and all of that. It's not necessary to go through that with the woman. Because ultimately, the reason why the men have the truth is to go out and teach it. So you're going to teach a woman the truth, but what is she going to really go out and do with it? Do you expect your woman to keep the same standard as you do with this truth? If you do, you're asking a lot. So I'm going to kick it off with Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 26. It says, "And I find more bitter than death the woman whose heart is snares and nets, and her hands as bands, who pleaseth God shall escape from her, but the sinner shall be taken by her." And in the scriptures it says the portion of ungodly man is an ungodly woman, roughly paraphrasing. And it says whose heart is snares and nets. And that's just, the makeup of a woman. Like, that's how they all think. They all just gotta remember something you said and try and use it against you or throw it in your face later. That's why it's wise to not divulge too much when dealing with women, Keep it short and sweet. Just say what you have to. 27th verse, it says, "Behold, this have I found, saith the preacher, counting one by one to find out the account. It says, which yet my soul seeketh, but I find not. One man among 1,000 have I found, but a woman among all those have I not found." So out of 1,000 men, there was found to be one righteous, but out of 1,000 women, there was found none to be righteous. And, if you spend any time here on this earth, especially here in America, you know that to be true for yourself, Now, it may have took 1,500 women or 1,100 women to find a righteous one, but out of 1,000, out of that pool, there was found none to be righteous. And you have that same thing here today in 2025. Good luck trying to find, a upstanding righteous woman. You'll be hard pressed. 29th verse. It says, "Lo, this only have I found, that the Most High hath made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions." Okay, let's go to Job. Get the account in Job. Start at the 4th verse. This is Job 2 and 4. It says, "And Satan answered the Lord Yahweh, and said, Skin for skin, ye, all that a man hath will he give for his life. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, Behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life." So this is, Satan and Yahweh, because Satan, for lack of better words, propositioned Yahweh. But we all know that it's really Yahweh that's making all of this go. Nothing goes without the say of Yahweh. But anyway, for lack of better words, you could say Satan propositioned Yahweh, saying, Job, he's only loyal to you because you give him everything. He's immensely blessed. But if you take those things away from him, I bet I could get him to curse you. And the Lord, he took up that bet. You could say, like, okay, but whatever you do, don't kill him. And so Job 2:5, it says, but put forth thine hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Satan, behold, he is in thine hand, but save his life. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord Yahweh, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. So imagine having blisters from literally your head to your toe. That's hell. It says, and he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat down among the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. And you see, that's the mentality of the woman. It says, but he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God? Receive good at the hand of the Most High, and shall we not receive evil? And all this did not Job sin with his lips. And that goes to show you how men and women are opposite, the integrity of men. Because Job made the point, when we're blessed, we got nothing to say to the Lord, we don't curse him then, but when we go through struggle and hardship, now we want to throw our hands up and turn the back on the Lord. Like, that's a lack of integrity. Imagine you're dealing with a woman, and when you hit turbulent times, she just throws her hands up and quits you and just stops dealing with you and curses you. Read the 9th verse again. It said, then said his wife unto him, doest thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die. See, that's what his wife told him. Just curse the Lord and die already, rather than suffering like this. Now let's go to Luke. So I bring that scripture out to make the point is, again, don't bother telling her the truth. She doesn't have the integrity you do, being the man. Just leave well. If she's pleased to deal with you, just leave well enough alone. Now this is Luke 17:30. It says, even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. It says, in that day, he which shall be upon the housetop and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. Let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him likewise not return back. Remember Lot's wife. Whosoever shall seek to save his life shall lose it, and whoever shall lose his life shall preserve it. And if you know anything about the story of Lot's wife, when they were escaping, she turned back, and that was symbolic on how she couldn't let go of the world and the worldly possessions that they had gained while they was in the world. The angel gave the command to, Lot, don't turn back, just keep going straight. Don't turn around. Don't look back. But again, Lot didn't look back, nor I believe it was the child. I want to say it was his daughter, if I'm not mistaken. I got to read the story over again. But Lot, he didn't turn around, but his wife turned around, and she turned into a pillar of salt. Lost her life like that because she was, hung up on the things that they had amassed while they was in the world. Because, Lot was a man of substance. It's not like they were struggling. So again, remember Lot's wife. This is just a pattern that the Lord is showing you how, women are. Of course, you have the elect woman, the elect lady out there. Not saying all women are completely wicked, but all women have their ways. I don't care what anybody says. There's certain constants that you can find within all women. But as a man, you got to be on a level and know how to deal with it. You can't let their mind and their feminine wiles overtake you, you know. You're just going to be in a world of trouble. Now let's go to Luke 12 and 47. This is Luke 12 and 47. It says, "And that servant which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes." It says, "But he that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more." So if you want to go out and out on a limb and teach a woman this truth, she's going to be held to a certain standard that she's ultimately never going to be able to meet in the end, if we're being realistic. Not in this setup. Because you think about it, us as men, how hard it is to keep the laws and do everything to the letter here in this setup, in this system. So how much more a woman? All a woman needs to do is just find a husband, you know, do right by her husband. And Lord's will, she makes it onto the ship, you know. In order for women to get salvation, they don't have to do much. You know, just serve your husband and be quiet. Men, we have, you know, a weight on our shoulders. We have a higher responsibility being men. And that's what comes with being a man. And I wouldn't trade it for nothing. So I'm going to read Luke 12 and 47. Again, it says, "And that servant which knew his Lord's will, and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes." Because when you know better, you're supposed to do better. It says, "But he that knew not and did not things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. And to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask for the more." And that men there is women included, you know. So let's go to 1 Corinthians 7 and 13. Let's get it in the NLT. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 13 in the NLT. It says, "And if a Christian woman has a husband," and replace that word Christian with Israelite. It says, "And if an Israelite woman has a husband who is not a believer, and he is willing to continue living with her, she must not leave him. For the Christian wife brings holiness to her, for the Israelite wife brings holiness to her marriage, and the Israelite husband brings holiness to his marriage. Otherwise your children would not be holy, but now they are holy. But if the husband or wife who isn't a believer insists on leaving, let them go. In such cases, the Israelite husband or wife is no longer bound to the other, for the Most High has called you to live in peace. Don't you wives realize that your husband might be saved because of you? And don't you husbands realize that your wives might be saved because of you? Each of you should continue to live in whatever situation the Lord has placed you, and remain as you were when the Most High first called you. This is my rule for all the churches." It says, for instance, a man who was circumcised before he became a believer should not try to reverse it. And the man who was uncircumcised when he became a believer should not be circumcised now. For it makes no difference whether or not a man has been circumcised. The important thing is to keep God's commandments. And you see, it's talk like the circumcision of the mind, you know, of the heart, you know, of the spirit. You know, just because you do the physical things, you know, that you look like an Israelite outwardly doesn't really mean anything. It's all about the spirit of the man, and in this case also the woman. So again, like, the IUIC is going off when they say you have to be with a woman or a man that's a believer. You got to leave who you're with and you have to be with a believer. That's going off. That's goes completely against the scripture I just read, because all that breeds now is adultery. So that's why the Lord had it all set up like this. The Lord knew what he was doing. He knew the conditions he was getting to, put his people in. So again, explain that to me then. How the unbelieving husband can be saved by the believing wife, and the unbelieving wife can be saved by the believing husband. The Lord had it set up like that strategically, because I'm of the belief that the elect women in America, the women that will make it onto the ships and receive salvation, they're going to be tied to a man already that's in the faith. They're going to have husbands. I highly doubt you're just going to have a woman that's out here doing her own thing in America that's going to make it onto the ship and have salvation. I just don't see it. I actually see a lot of our wives in the kingdom coming from other countries, because like I read, majority of these women, they not going to make it. Majority of the women in America, at least. So again, that's why it's just a futile effort to try teaching your woman this 100% truth. She's never going to get it. At least not 100% of the truth. There's always going to be something she's going to buck up against or act willfully ignorant with. You can bank on it. Now, let's go to 1 Ezra. I'm going to end it here. This is 1 Ezra chapter 4, verse 26 in the Good News Translation. It says, "Some men are driven out of their minds on account of a woman, and others became slaves for the sake of a woman. Others have been put to death, have ruined their lives, or have committed crimes because of women." And I'm sure we can all think of a man like that, or we have heard of a man like that, or we know a man like that. It says, "So now do you believe me? The emperor's power is certainly great. No nation has the courage to attack him. But once I saw him with Apemi, his concubine, the daughter of the famous Bartachus, while sitting at the emperor's right. She took his crown off his head, put it on her own, and then slapped his face with her left hand. All the emperor did was look at her with his mouth open. Whenever she smiles at him, he smiles back. And when she gets angry with him, he flatters her and teases her until she is in a good mood again." You see, simping. You got the same thing going on today. A woman will come around you with an attitude and expect you to ask her 100 times what's wrong or what's the matter, how can I make you happy, what could I do? That's simping. Again, though, a woman, there's nothing like the feminine touch, there's nothing like feminine energy. If you're not in the right spirit and in your right mind, it could overtake you. Because there's really nothing in the world that really compares to it. Read 31 again. It says, all the emperor did was look at her with his mouth open. Whenever she smiles at him, he smiles back. And when she gets angry with him, he flatters her and teases her until she is in a good mood again. Gentlemen, if women can do all that, surely there can be nothing stronger in the world. See? So that's why it's important because to deal with women, you have to be on a level. If you just a man just out here in the world, naive, not knowing what's going on, and you just gonna deal with women and think you know what you're doing, she's gonna overtake you, because she's gonna drown you in the emotions. Because when it comes to emotions, you can't overtake a woman. Like, that's their genetic makeup right there. So as the man, you got to deal in logic. So that's it on that. Again, don't bother teaching her the truth. It's a futile effort that won't yield you nothing in the end. You may even actually be worse off. Again, there's nothing wrong with talking about scripture with your woman, maybe even going through certain scriptures with your woman. But to try and give her 100% truth, it's a waste of time and a futile effort. So, Lord willing, this was edifying. Till the next time, Shalom.